The moment his shoes slipped on the polished marble floor, Daniel felt the old familiar panic rise in his chest, the kind that comes when you realize you do not belong. The wedding hall shimmered with light and laughter, with silk dresses and tailored suits, and there he stood in a borrowed jacket, clutching a gift bag that felt heavier than it should. He was just a guest, invisible and out of place, a single dad who had come only out of obligation. He never imagined that, before the night ended, one simple gesture would crack open a life he thought had already closed. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when people least expect them, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still waiting to heal. Daniel had not planned to stay long. He had promised himself he would show up, smile politely, drop the gift on the table, and leave before anyone noticed how uncomfortable he was. Weddings had a way of reminding him of everything he had lost and everything he had failed to become. 3 years earlier, his wife had died suddenly, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old daughter and a silence that felt endless. Since then, life had been reduced to survival. Early mornings, packed lunches, unpaid bills, and the constant ache of pretending to be strong for a child who still asked when her mother was coming back. Joy, when it appeared at all, came in small, fleeting moments, like his daughter falling asleep on his chest or laughing at something silly on television. The wedding belonged to someone he barely knew anymore, a distant cousin whose life had unfolded along a far smoother path. Daniel had been invited out of courtesy, not closeness, and he felt it in every glance that slid past him without stopping. People greeted one another with warm embraces and loud laughter, while Daniel hovered at the edge of the room, nodding awkwardly when someone recognized his face but not his story. He noticed the couples first, the way hands found hands instinctively, the way shoulders leaned into familiar comfort. It made him aware of his own emptiness, the space beside him that no one filled. He took a seat near the back, choosing a chair that allowed him to disappear. From there, he watched the ceremony unfold like a scene from a film he no longer belonged to. The vows were spoken, the applause rose and fell, and the newlyweds glowed with the kind of happiness that once felt permanent. Daniel clapped too, quietly, and felt a lump form in his throat. He wondered if he would ever feel that kind of certainty again, or if his life would always be a careful, balancing act between responsibility and regret. The reception was worse. Music filled the air, rich food covered long tables, and laughter echoed off the walls. Daniel picked at his plate, forcing himself to eat while his thoughts drifted back to his daughter waiting at home with a neighbor. He told himself he would leave after dessert, that there was no reason to linger in a place that made him feel so alone. He stood up, straightening his jacket, ready to slip out unnoticed. That was when everything changed. Across the room, amid the swirl of color and movement, she noticed him. She was not part of his plan, not someone he had expected to see or meet. She moved with a calm grace that stood out against the noise, her presence steady rather than loud. She was close to the bride, clearly someone important, yet she did not seem consumed by the attention. Her eyes found Daniel's at the exact moment he turned toward the exit, and something in her expression made him pause. It was not pity or curiosity, but recognition, as if she saw more than the awkward man standing alone. Before he could retreat, she crossed the room. Daniel felt the heat rise to his face, the old instinct to apologize for taking up space. He braced himself for polite small talk, or an explanation he did not have the energy to give. Instead, she reached him with a quiet confidence that disarmed him completely. In front of everyone, without hesitation, she took his hand and guided him toward the dance floor. The music shifted, and suddenly Daniel was standing under soft lights, surrounded by couples moving in slow circles. His heart pounded, not with excitement, but with fear. He had not danced since before his wife died, and even then, it had never felt natural. Every part of him wanted to pull away, to tell her she had made a mistake, that he was not meant for moments like this. Yet her hand remained steady in his, grounding him in a way he had not felt in years. As they began to move, awkward at first, something unexpected happened. The tension in his shoulders eased. The noise of the room softened, fading into the background. For the first time that evening, Daniel stopped thinking about how he looked or what others might see. He focused instead on the simple rhythm of the music and the warmth of another human being choosing him, just as he was. The dance was not perfect. His steps were hesitant, his timing off, but it did not matter. Around them, the celebration continued, but in that small circle of light, Daniel felt something stir inside him, an emotion he had buried deep to survive. It was hope, fragile and unfamiliar, but undeniably real. He realized how long it had been since anyone had reached for him without needing something in return. As the song ended and the moment passed, Daniel expected the spell to break. He expected to feel foolish or exposed. Instead, he felt lighter, as if a weight he had carried for years had shifted just enough to let him breathe. She smiled at him, not in triumph but in quiet understanding, and returned to her place among the guests. Daniel stood there for a second longer, unsure of what to do next, before returning to his seat with a heart that felt strangely full. The rest of the evening unfolded differently. People who had barely noticed him before now greeted him with warmth, as if that single dance had made him visible. He found himself laughing at a joke, accepting a refill of his drink, staying longer than he had planned. He still missed his wife. That ache did not disappear, but alongside it was something new, a sense that life was not finished with him yet. Later that night, as he drove home through quiet streets, Daniel replayed the moment over and over in his mind. He thought about how close he had come to leaving, how easily he could have missed it. He wondered how many times in his life he had turned away from connection because he was afraid of being hurt again. When he reached home and checked on his sleeping daughter, he felt a renewed determination. He kissed her forehead and promised silently that he would try harder, not just for her, but for himself. In the weeks that followed, the memory of that night stayed with him. It showed up in small ways, when he spoke up at work instead of shrinking back, when he accepted help instead of insisting he was fine, when he smiled at strangers instead of looking away. Life did not suddenly become easy. Bills still needed paying, mornings were still rushed, and grief still visited him when he least expected it. But something had shifted. He no longer saw himself as just a guest in other people's happiness. Months later, he ran into her again by chance, at a community event he would normally have avoided. This time, he did not feel like an outsider. They talked, slowly at first, then more easily, discovering shared experiences and quiet understandings. She listened when he spoke about his daughter, about loss, about fear, and she did not try to fix any of it. She simply stayed. For Daniel, that was everything. What began as a single dance became a series of choices, to show up, to stay open, to believe that joy could exist alongside sorrow. He learned that healing was not about forgetting the past, but about allowing new moments to stand beside it. He learned that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness carry the greatest power. As you reach this moment in the story, take a second to reflect on the times someone reached out to you when you felt invisible, or the times you could have been that person for someone else. If this story has touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can find their way into the world. And before the ending, here is a special request. Please comment below and share what this story made you feel, or a moment when kindness changed your life in an unexpected way. Years later, Daniel would look back on that wedding not as a reminder of what he had lost, but as the night he remembered who he was. He would tell his daughter about it when she was old enough to understand, about how courage sometimes comes disguised as a simple invitation, and how love can find you when you are only expecting to pass through. The memory of that hand reaching for his would remain with him always, a quiet promise that even when you feel like just a guest in the room, life can still choose you to dance.